You are not just another hustling salesperson. You are the expert, the resource, the valuable partner for your clients. And how you grow your business should reflect how your clients see you. Welcome to the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast. We generate referrals without asking, build positive client experiences, and help you take control of your business. Here's your charmingly sarcastic host, Stacy Brown Randall.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 134 of the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Brown Randall. Okay, before we dive in to this very first episode of this brand new year, 2021. Hello, how you doing, 2021? Please be kinder to us than 2020 was. But before we dive into this first episode, just a couple of things for you to note. First, the Goal Finishers Club is still open and accepting new students now through January 15th. So when January 16th rolls around, the club will be closed. And so if you want to join our monthly accountability group where we hold you accountable to crushing your goals throughout 2021, you need to sign up by January 15th, because when we close the doors, we won't be letting any more students in for the rest of the year. Really important to note, the club will reopen December of 2021 at the end of this year, of course, for the 2022 club. But if you want to get in for 2021, now's your time to join. And I want you to remember, we always, every year, have lots of great resources planned to support you. We have some 4-day and 5-day challenges scheduled. We're going to do some webinar trainings and so much more. To be in the know for everything we have going on, not only throughout 2021, but definitely what we have coming up for first quarter, make sure you're in our Referrals Without Asking Facebook group. And you can always check out our training page, which is stacybrownrandall.com/training. And you know it, Stacy has an E. Okay, so today we're going to talk about some very important business lessons learned from the craziest year. Hello, goodbye, 2020. Right? We're going to talk about some crazy business lessons that we learned from our craziest year. But before I dive in to those business lessons learned, I want to ask a very important question, and I'm going to want your response. That's right, which means you need to hop into the Facebook group, Referrals Without Asking, and let me know the answer to this question. Or if you're also in our Reverse Goal Setting pop-up Facebook group, which is still alive, active, and kicking for the next couple of weeks, you can hop into that group too and let me know. But what I'm interested to know is this: have you set your 2021 intention word? That's right. Have you set the word that is going to bring you back to focus when you need it throughout the year, when you start to, let's just say, digress from focusing on accomplishing and finishing your goals? An intention word is such an important part that can really drive you and motivate you and bring you back to what's important when you fall off course throughout the next 360 or so days. So do you have an intention word for 2021? I do. My word is fix it. And because I'm a big stickler for only one-word answers, we're putting a hyphen between fix and it. Now, you may be wondering, okay, that's such a random word. I mean, I have had some pretty great words in the past, like peace, fearless, focused, radical, and now I'm going with good old fix it. And that's because as I paid attention to what was working in my business throughout 2020 and what wasn't working as well as I wanted it to, there's just a number of processes, things that we do, how we run our business that just need to be fixed. I believe in the mantra of, as an entrepreneur, 80% and go. You do not have time to wait for perfection, because perfection never comes, which means you'll never do anything and you'll never take the next step. So I'm a big believer in 80% and go. But I also believe in sometimes when you've got it up there and it's running and it's working, coming back to refine it is also a good place to be. So we did a lot of building in 2020. If you're a member of my Growth by Referrals program, you got that long email at the end of last year. I think I sent it on December 30th, but you got that long email, or it was posted in our student-only Growth by Referrals Facebook group, of everything that happened in 2020, right? All of the trainings additional trainings, in addition to the actual online Growth by Referrals program, all the additional trainings that we did for you guys as we were attempting to navigate 2020, on top of the trainings we already had planned. Remember that ill-fated February training I did about in-person events? Yeah, totally didn't need that training last year, but we'll bring it back for 2021. And so when you think about like all the things that we did within 2020, we were really planning on having a year where we didn't build that much stuff or have to create that much stuff because of all the creation and building and new things that we did in 2019 when we overhauled the Growth by Referrals program and moved it to a new platform and added really cool like earning badges and ninja belts and levels and all kinds of fun things. I didn't expect to build so much in 2020, but of course, 2020 had other plans for my business. And I ended up having to really dig in and shift to helping my students in my programs, whether that was Goal Finishers Club or Growth by Referrals or Sticky Client Experience, really dig in and help them not only survive, but thrive whatever was coming our way as COVID was unfolding last year. And so we did a lot of building. And we launched a number of things as well. We opened up the Goal Finishers Club in the middle of the year and did a huge push on goals resetting in June and July. Opened up the Goal Finishers Clubs to new members in the middle of the year, which we had not done before. We also did a ton of new training specific to COVID and managing your message and delivery of your touch points within the Growth by Referrals program. We launched our Referral Ninja Inner Circle, which had been on deck for 2020, but we actually had to launch it a little bit differently because COVID was happening. And so there was just a lot of building that happened in 2020, part because that was what was planned and part because of necessity for me to support my students in each of my programs. So this year we're going back in and we're not really building anything new, so to speak. I say that it's January. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know how I'll feel come June or July, but we're really looking at it from this perspective of what can we fix to make the business run better, to give our students a better experience, to be able to provide better and content for you as the folks who consume this podcast and the articles that I write and the Facebook groups that we have, the free ones and the paid ones. Like, how do we fix the things that just would make the experience better for you as a community member or as a paid student of one of my programs? So that's our big focus, fix it for 2021. And I think it's important that you have one as well. I think you need an intention word for yourself. So would you hop into our Referrals Without Asking or our Reverse Goal Setting pop-up Facebook group? Would you hop into either of those two groups and tell me what your intention word is for 2021? I would love to know. Okay. Keeping in that same vein of understanding what we want to accomplish for 2021 and what our intention word is and how we're going to tackle this year with still a lot of unknowns, I have been working on really paying attention throughout 2020 to the lessons that I'm learning and watching my students learn as we are business owners throughout the craziest year of our global pandemic, COVID of 2020. There are 4 main lessons I want to share with you. The truth is, guys, you know this. There's dozens and dozens of lessons that we all learned throughout 2020. And some were business and some were personal. I'm going to focus on some business lessons, 4 of them for this episode, but that doesn't mean these are the only lessons I learned. These are the only lessons you guys learned. It's just the lessons that when we paid attention, in my case, these are the lessons that spoke the loudest to me. And these are the ones that I want to make sure that we are talking about and that we are addressing and that you have an opportunity to think about for yourself moving forward to how you want 2021 to look a little bit different from 2020, and maybe realizing and keeping in mind these lessons, these business lessons learned, will be helpful. So number 1, and I think this is across the board, no matter if your business thrived or struggled in 2020, I think this lesson across the board is super important, which is savings, savings, savings. Yes. Business lesson number 1 is to have business savings. Now, you should definitely have personal savings, and you should have double the amount of personal savings if you're a business owner. So the typical rule of thumb for most people who talk about personal finance is that you should have, 3 months of an emergency fund, that if something happened, you have 3 months in a bank account that you can dip into that would pay your bills for those 3 months if you weren't bringing in income. Now, some people say it's 3 months, some people say it's more, but that's usually like the typical, like from a personal perspective, you should have 3 months of savings in an emergency fund. As a business owner, you really should have 6 months. You really should have 6 months of your expenses personally set aside, that if you couldn't pay yourself, if your business could not pay you for 6 months, that you had a place where you could go. It would be hard to go there, I'm sure, and dip into savings, but you had a savings account specifically set up on the personal side to pay your personal bills for those 6 months. So that is what I believe everyone should have, whether it's 3 months or 6 months. That's kind of the rule of thumb when it comes to being an employee at 3 months, maybe. And then, of course, a business owner at 6 months. I mean, heck, we really should all have 6 months, but I'm just looking at this from a business owner perspective. But I think what 2020 taught a lot of folks is you need also a business savings account, not just relying on your personal savings account. I felt different. And I was acutely aware of how different I felt throughout 2020, particularly when I had some really, really crazy strong months in terms of people joining my programs. And then I had some really ghost town months, like, woohoo, anybody out there, right? Anybody want referrals, right? So when I was acutely aware as I went month by month through 2020 and kind of lived through it and then reflected back on it, I was acutely aware of how different I felt in the smaller months or the lower income or revenue months than I felt in the higher income months. And what I mean by acutely aware of how I felt is my mentality didn't change. Instead of feeling the highs and the lows from a revenue producing perspective in my business, instead of feeling the highs and the lows each month in my business, I felt just the same. I don't even know the best way to describe it, but I just felt good. I just felt like, hey, this was a down month, right? Like last month was awesome. The month before that was awesome. This is a down month. And I didn't ride those waves because I had money set aside that I had started in 2019 building up a business savings account. And I think that was the difference for me of not feeling the highs and lows from a revenue producing perspective within my business each and every month, is even when I had a down month. And I think my only low month last year, I think it was June. I think June just wasn't the best month for me in my world. But when I look at that, I just remember feeling the same as I felt in May, which was a great month, and the same that I felt in September, which was an even better month. I just remember feeling the same way because I knew that if, hey, the income wasn't coming in, if the revenue wasn't coming in, I still knew how I was going to pay myself. I still knew how I was going to pay my bills, and I knew where I was going to go if I needed it. And I wouldn't be tapping into our personal savings. I'd be tapping into my business savings. And a big game changer for me to feel this way throughout 2020, which I know put me in a place that most of you maybe didn't feel and you wish you could have felt. And for some of you, you had a kick butt 2020. So it almost didn't matter because you were making more revenue than you made before. I mean, I have members in my Goal Finishers Club. I have one who made $1 million more in 2020 than they made in 2019. Right? And I have a couple of them who hit the $1 million mark or got so close to the $1 million mark. It was crazy. We were calling it like they had hit the $1 million mark in 2020. So I know some businesses did better than ever before. So you probably just rode the high all year long, right? I'm talking about those businesses that could feel the ups and downs of revenue producing months in their business. And knowing for myself, it just didn't negatively impact me. It didn't scare me. Yes, I want my business to do more than it's ever done the month prior, right? I always want my business to do better. I always will feel like my business has more potential. Of course it has more potential. I look back over the years and I'm like, it should be better. And then sometimes I look back and I'm like, but wow, look how far I've come. But I think for those of us who didn't have to ride the highs and the lows of where am I going to get the next dollar from? Where's the next client coming from? It's because we had the safety net. And the safety net was the savings account. And the game changer for me was when I implemented Profit First in my business in 2019. And so I've been setting aside money every month like you're supposed to, right? Pulling out money from my profit account, pulling out money from my tax account. And when I looked back throughout every month through 2020 and I was seeing my profit account grow and my tax account grow, some months they grew smaller than others, right? But watching it grow, I was like, you know what? If the worst happened, I know this is not how you're supposed to do it in Profit First, but in my mind, I said to myself, hey, if the worst happens, those are two pretty big buckets of money I could go to if I needed that could allow my business to survive, that could pay its expenses and continue to pay me. So it wouldn't negatively impact the life that Norma and I have with our family. And guys, that is just an entirely different place to be sitting. And so I implore you, if you do not have a business savings account set aside and you're not doing something like Profit First, where you're setting aside your profit and setting aside tax, and that is obviously money to pay taxes, but typically you set aside more than you need. If you don't have something like that in your business, guys, make 2021 the year that you do it, because I think it's an important necessity for you. You know, I asked the question about like what lessons learned to the members of some of my programs. I asked them, what lessons did you learn throughout 2020? And Catherine Taylor, who's an attorney in Maryland, who is like the most fabulous student because I should say most fabulous client, because I think she's literally in every single one of my programs. God bless her. I love her so much. She's so good and she has so much success. She's in my Growth by Referrals program and continues to grow her referrals every year. She's been in the Goal Finishers Club now for the 3rd year and crushing goals every year since. She's in the Referral Ninja Inner Circle, which kind of takes on after your first year and the Growth by Referrals program is over. She's in all of it and she's crushing it, which helps me know that I am helping people. And there is a point to why people invest with me. But it was interesting when I asked that question, and she said that, you know, it was important for her to have a plan of knowing her expenses in advance. It's more than just having a budget. Right? She said it's knowing what's coming and figuring out in advance how each expense will be paid. I think that is such a valuable lesson as well for 2020. And I did the same thing. And Profit First kind of made me do this, where I started paying attention in 2019, when I implemented Profit First, is what were the expenses that came out reoccurring every month? And then what were the big expenses that hit twice a year or quarterly or once a year? So when I think about some of my big expenses, like the design company that I use that designs most of all of my graphics, they hit me twice, April and I think October. Right, so they hit me twice a year. And then I look at like Entreport, which is the company that I use that is my email provider, which is like how I deliver like when you guys download something or you get my weekly emails every Tuesday about the newest episode that's out, or when we're talking, I deliver my challenge emails to you if you're participating in a daily challenge with me. How I deliver that is through a company called Entreport. And they hit me. It's a wallop, right? And they hit me every December. So it's like knowing those are coming and knowing that I need to be prepared for them and not having them surprise me is super important. And I think that is great what Catherine's talking about. So it's not only having that savings account, it's also knowing, hey, these are the expenses I need to anticipate for this year. And how are they going to be paid, in particular if I have down revenue months prior to those expenses hitting? A business savings account can certainly be your answer. Okay, let's move on to business lesson number 2. Relationships matter most. I think in a time when businesses are struggling, our community is struggling, what you really realize is that relationships matter most. And you really see who's there for you and you really see who shows up for you. One of the things that I did when COVID hit is I reached out. Of course, I was reaching out to my students and I was providing them with new and additional training that they needed to manage COVID and their referral touch point plans through the beginning of COVID and then throughout, of course, COVID as it continues. But I also reached out to all of my referral sources. And it was really just what do you need? Like, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Here's what I think I can do. But is that what you need? And in some cases, it was just, thank you for reaching out with no agenda and just being willing to help. Like that was some of the feedback I got. And reminding myself and then reminding all of you guys that times are good, times are tough. Relationships will always matter most. But relationships only can matter when you're taking care of them, when you're reaching out to your referral sources and to your clients and even to your prospects or to people in your community or to people in your network or people in your networking groups. Like you actually have to genuinely care about people and you have to focus on building those relationships and seeing how you can help those relationships and being a giver first, because relationships matter most, particularly in very tough times. And I think that was a reminder. I think it's a lesson we know, right? So is having a savings account for your business. These are lessons we know, but these are lessons that they just became more poignant and they became more laser focused with greater clarity for us throughout 2020. And these are lessons that we should hold dear moving into 2021. So relationships matter most. So I ask you to consider, what are the relationships that matter most to you? First, look at this personally, because that is super important, probably more important than the business. Look at the relationships that matter most to you personally. And then look at the relationships that matter most to you in your business. And I'm going to say at the top of that list, I know you want to put your clients there and they're amazing. And my clients, my students of my programs, guys, I love you guys. Oh my gosh, so much. But I put my referral sources above you because my referral sources is what brings me new students and new clients into my program. So I put my referral sources first, but close, almost like tied for first, right below them are my students and my clients and helping them. And then, of course, the prospects that I hope one day will want to work with me, and people and members of my community and of my contacts and of my network. Figuring out how your relationships, how they work, if they're strong enough, if they need some tender loving care, if they need you to take care of them. It's just an important thing we should be paying attention to, not just because we had a crazy year, but really every month. Relationships will always matter most. Okay, number 3, the third business lesson learned from our crazy year. If you believe in the value of what you sell, nothing can stop you. Now, let me put this into context. I truly believe if you believe in what you sell, if you believe that what you sell is valuable, that it helps people, and that you have seen it work in other people's lives, that nothing can stop you. There were moments throughout 2020 where lots of us wanted to put our head in the sand. Like I actually have some of my GBR students who are like, I basically put my head in the sand for a couple of months. And that's okay, right? We all handled COVID differently when it first started. And so I think the reality of it is understanding that when you know what you do is valuable, truly nothing can stop you. Can things slow you down? Oh, heck yeah, right? COVID did, right? For a lot of folks. So things can slow you down, but they can't stop you. Because if you know what you do matters, then you keep pushing forward. Then you keep trying to help people. There was a video that I did. It was like one of the Facebook Lives that I did off the cuff on a walk one day about should you be selling? And I think I posted it I think I recorded it live like in April or May, because that seemed to be the question everyone was talking about. Like, we're in the middle of the beginning of a global pandemic. Should we be selling? And there was a lot of debate in the internet world of social media as to what that looked like. And I remember thinking, well, we can't not sell for the whole year because none of our businesses will survive. But we do obviously need to be understanding to what's happening in people's lives right now and more of the unknown. This was like March, April, May, when we still didn't really know what does this look like. I think by June, we knew this thing's going to be around for a while. So there was a big debate going on about should we be selling? And I remember doing a Facebook Live, and I remember talking about how the value you bring will help the people who need your help. And in all honesty, May and September, I probably brought in more students specifically into the Growth by Referrals program. That's not how it aligns for all of my programs, but just thinking about the Growth by Referrals program, I think May and September, I brought in the most students, December as well. But when we're thinking about this being in the beginning of the pandemic, May was one of my strongest months. Because what I knew about my program and what I knew about what it did for people and what I saw it doing for folks, even as the pandemic was starting, was that referrals are evergreen and you need them regardless. And I believe in what I do. And I believe it. And it's so easy to believe in what I do because I get the testimonials and the case studies and the results coming out of my students all the time. And I remember hearing people say, and now when we get to the end of COVID, right? The end of 2020, COVID is not done. But when we got to the end of 2020, I remember having some students be like, hey, I started my plan in September, my referral plan, the way I teach it inside the Growth by Referrals program. She said, I started your program in September of 2019, and I was rocking it until like March hit. And March hit, I put my head in my sand and I didn't do anything and I was kind of nervous. She was like, and yet just by doing touch points September through March, and that's not something every week, and that is definitely not even something every month, but just doing her touch points as I teach them, and then the order in which I think you should start them, September through March, she brought in 14 referrals. She's an interior designer, and she brought in 14 referrals through September of 2020. And I'm not sure what she did afterward, but we were just looking at her first year results, and she brought in 14 referrals, and that sustained her practice moving forward. And so when you hear things like that, I 100% fully believe in the value of what I sell. And that means nothing can stop me. That doesn't mean things won't slow you down. That doesn't mean sometimes we won't have doubts. And that doesn't mean sometimes we'll be super, super nervous when it's time to raise the prices of your programs, which is what I'm facing right now. But if the value is there and you believe in it and you know that you're helping people, nothing can stop you. You just sometimes have to get out of your own way. And so on that Facebook Live that I was doing about should you be selling right now, my answer to that is that's up to you. That's up to your industry. That's up to what you're doing. That's up to how much you believe in what you're selling. And will it help people right now? And if it will, however you define that, then you should never feel an obligation to stop selling. Most people did in March. We all kind of did in March, right? But April and May, people were back to selling. And a big question I got was, why aren't you discounting your programs? Like that was a big question I heard a couple of times from folks. They're like, why aren't you discounting your programs? We're in this global pandemic. You should be discounting your programs. If you believe so much in people being in it and they should be, participating and joining your program, why aren't you discounting? And all I could think was because of the people who paid in full in March or February or September of 2019. Like the idea that, you should discount and you can offer discounts. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just talking about how I dealt with those questions that were coming up. And then what I kept coming back to is I'm respecting the students who came before you that paid in full or paid the full amount of the program price, the investment. And I believe in what I do because I see it all the time in my students. I respect and honor and believe in the value that my programs produce for people. And so I just didn't let anything stop me. And I think that is another very important business lesson that we need to keep in mind as we move through 2021. And unfortunately, our COVID times are not yet over. So we need to be prepared for that as well. And we don't know what's coming. I think for the first time ever, we have no idea what a year is going to look like. Isn't that crazy? Okay. And our final business lesson learned from the craziest year of 2020 is faith over fear. Let's be honest. Throughout 2020, that was so much easier said than actually believed. But reminding yourself, and for me, you guys know this is my Christian faith. This is my belief in God. This is my belief that He will provide. It may not be the way I want Him to provide, and it may not look like I think it's supposed to look, but that He is there and He is our protector and He will take care of our family and He will provide for us in whatever way He deems to be the right way to provide for us. For me, my faith drove any fear that I had throughout 2020 with my business, with my health, with the people that I loved. And I knew people who got COVID. And unfortunately, I know people close to me that passed from COVID. And it is the most heartbreaking thing to ever experience. But I chose to believe in my faith over fear. And it's harder said than done, but it was a constant that I kept doing. And for you, maybe it looks different, right? It's whatever your belief in the higher power, your belief in faith, your belief in the universe, whatever that looks like for you, is remembering that there is always something greater that can stand in the face and in the place of your fear, but you just have to let it. So the belief that your faith can be stronger than the fears that we are facing. And I know for some folks, you are picking up the pieces of 2020. Now that it's 2021, you are still picking up the pieces from 2020 and you don't know where to go from here. And you may find yourself without a company in 2021 and having to go back and get a job. And my friend, I have been there and it's hard and it's difficult, but you can do it. And for some of you, you're picking up the pieces of your business and you've figured out a way forward, and it's going to be hard work and it's going to test every bit of strength you have inside of you. And it is definitely going to be a journey filled with fear. But I believe you have the ability to walk through it. And for some of you, you're coming off the best year ever, and it wasn't intentional. And it wasn't as if you thought that was ever going to happen because of 2020. but it was what it was for you. And now you are looking around, figuring out how else can you help others. And that is a wonderful place and a position for you to be in. But no matter what 2021 holds for us, I believe that my faith is stronger than my fear. It doesn't mean I don't have fear. I will always have fear. I mean, heck, sometimes I have fear before I actually hit publish for each weekly podcast episode. I mean, not all of them, but when I get on my soapboxes and stuff, sometimes I'm like, oh, did I just kind of go over the top on that one? Right? Fear will always be a part of our daily lives. What I'm asking you to consider is that you can step past that fear by focusing on something greater than yourself. For me, that is my faith. For you, it may look like something different, but we're not supposed to let fear win. That doesn't mean fear won't be there. It just means it's not supposed to be triumphant in the end. And so every day we got to do something to push ourselves outside our comfort zone, past our fear, to do the thing that scares us, whatever it looks like for us, and keep moving forward. I keep my eye up and on the Lord because that is where my faith drives me and that is where I am called to be. But that doesn't mean sometimes I don't just want to pull the covers over my head and be like, can this day just end without me actually having to get through it? Faith is never the absence of fear. It's the belief in something is there, supporting you, walking behind you, pushing you, catching you when you need it, when you're facing fear. And so I hope that for you, whatever it looks like for you, that you will have some type of faith over any fear you will face moving forward. Because if you survive 2020, no matter what you look like and your business look like coming out of it, if you're still here and you survive 2020, that means you did step past fear and you're making hard choices and hard decisions on how to move forward. And for that, I'm super proud of you. So again, those 4 business lessons: savings, savings, savings. Number 2, relationships matter most. Number 3, if you believe in the value of what you do and what you sell, nothing can stop you. And number 4, faith over fear. I hope that 2021 is all you need it to be, whatever that looks like for you. That is my prayer for all of us, is that 2021 will be whatever we need it to be. A rebuilding year, an overcoming year, a smashing all the records year, whatever it needs to be for you. And what I also pray for you is that you were able to go bravely into this year. You were able to step bravely day by day throughout 2021, knowing you don't know what's coming and what the year holds. That is my prayer. That is my hope. And that is my wish for you. Remember, any of the resources that I shared in this episode can be found on the show notes page at stacybrownrandall.com/134. So meaning if you are looking for the link to join the Goal Finishers Club, which is goalfinishers.com. But if you're looking for that link and you're driving, don't write it down. You can go to the show notes page to find it. You can also go to the show notes page to find our training link, the link to our training page, so you can check out all the awesome things we have planned for this year. We don't usually list out everything for the year. We kind of go month by month. Just keep that in mind. You can find the link to all of our trainings, our challenges coming up. And of course, a link to both of our Facebook groups, our free Facebook groups, Referrals Without Asking, and our Reverse Goal Setting pop-up Facebook group, where you can go in and tell me what your intention word is for 2021. And if 2021 is the year that it's time for you to have your first real referral explosion with a real strategy and system to know what to do and to know what to do so that it meets the needs of the year that we are having, then here's how I can help you. Number 1, please, if you haven't taken the Referral Ninja quiz, you got to know your level. I want to know, are you a Referral Ninja Master? Only 2% of the people who take the quiz are. So are you? You can find a link to the quiz on the show notes page, stacybrownrandall.com/134. You can also buy my book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, wherever books are sold. And of course, keep listening to this podcast and to all the episodes that we have. And if you subscribe to the podcast, you won't miss a single episode. So you'll get all that goodness coming into your earbuds every single Tuesday. And next week's episode is episode 135. And we are back to the beloved topic of referrals without asking. Until then, take control and grow your business. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast. To access all resources and links mentioned in today's show and to connect with Stacy, head over to www.stacybrownrandall.com.